Do you think that she's already the greatest women's fighter of all time?
I mean, that's hard to say because her weight division, it seems, isn't very developed. I mean, it's hard to say if anyone
But can you hold that against her, though? Because who are you going to say is the best women's fighter of all time?
Exactly. I mean, this is a very difficult argument to make. And I think Brendan actually has his pick.
I'm about
I
to
think
yell at
it's
Brennan.
Ronda still. Like
I think.
one. No, hold on, hold
Go
on.
ahead, go ahead.
Chris Cyborg's gonna have to get a couple more wins together. Either it's nobody. She has to get a couple more wins in the UFC in order to get that. What was Ronda's win streak? 10, 11, 12?
I'm not sure.
You have to win more in order to do that. I think Joanna is ahead of Chris Cyborg.
I think Ronda had 6 UFC wins.
You
Go
you
ahead.
have to win more fights in order to surpass Ronda.
I think Ronda is without a doubt the most important women's fighter of all time. But if we're going off performance, I just think Cyborg's been dominant longer than Ronda ever was.
And I'm 100%. I think right now, because I didn't know Cyborg already has had 18 professional fights. She's 17-1.
I mean, yeah, she was in Strikeforce.
Yeah, Strikeforce and Invicta.
Did she ever get to revenge her loss?
Eventually, I don't know who she
It
lost
was
to.
like super early in her career, and I don't know. I don't think she avenged it. But if you want to try to hold that against her, there's no way Ronda Rousey could beat either Holly Holm or Amanda Nunes right now.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just curious because, like, have her fight her again. You know what I'm saying? Like, have her whip her behind.
Her loss. Hold on.
Right now, Buju's pulling it up via
It was the
Sherdog.com.
first fight of her career against Erica Paes, Paes, and it was a submission via knee bar. I'm seeing if this girl is still alive.
Well, I mean, that means then Cyborg has been undefeated since when did she make her MMA debut?
Oh my God, you're asking me so many questions.
I'm sorry. When was that fight?
May of 2005.
So that means that's over a decade of going undefeated, and that's not a Jose Aldo decade where he fought like 3 times. That's like a legit decade when she won 17 straight, including 3 UFC fights, Invicta, which was the highest women's promotion since the UFC didn't offer a weight class, as well as Strikeforce. So I mean, she is legit and probably the best ever.
The only girl that Cyborg lost to, like I said, it was her career debut, or professional debut anyway. The girl she lost to was Erica Pace. I'm gonna go with Pace. Erica Pace was 3-2 in her career. She hasn't fought since March of 2015. She submitted Cyborg in her first fight, lost to Dina Vanderhoeven in her second fight, beat Giselle Machel by submission in her third fight, lost to Betch Correia in her fourth fight, and beat Evelyn Gomez in her last fight with a career record of 3-2. I don't think that really has much to do with the legacy of Cyborg. Strictly off performance, I think you have to say Cyborg is the best all time. I definitely get the argument for Ronda, and Ronda's without a doubt the most important women's fighter of all time and probably one of the 5 most important MMA fighters of all time. But as far as greatest in the octagon or in the cage goes, I think it's probably Cyborg.
I'm not. It's reasonable. I'm not. It's very arguable, but I still think it's Ronda until she gets a couple more wins. But I also think it's different time. So, like, if Ronda fought now, she would obviously not win or not do good. But I think at that time, like, Misha was pretty good. You know, people were good still. Where, like, I don't even know the names of the people that Cyborg fought besides home right now.
Outside the UFC, her biggest win was probably Gina Carano, and Gina Carano definitely wouldn't survive in today's landscape. She benefited off of being early in the women's MMA game, but Cyborg was also Ronda was also fighting in the times that Cyborg was fighting pre-UFC, so she was facing a lot of the same level talent. So I think that's a point for Cyborg even if you talk about level of competition, because Cyborg survived the early stuff and is still dominant now once the game has changed and the opponent's skill level has risen, and Cyborg's been able to handle that and is still dominant now.
So I have a question for you guys, and I mean, this is, let's say, when Ronda was knocking people on their heads and taking their arms off. Do you think that Ronda could beat Cyborg when she at the same time?
At the time, I thought that Ronda would beat Cyborg. And this might be revisionist history, but now I look back and I don't think that any version of Ronda Rousey could beat Chris Cyborg.
Yeah, I don't think so. Once Ronda gets hit by a Cyborg punch, it's over, as we witnessed against Holm in her other fights.
If Ronda gets hit by anybody, her body, like, she's on baby deer legs and she's desperately reaching out.
Exactly.
And, yeah, it's not a pretty sight when Ronda gets hit, and Ronda getting hit by Cyborg would not be pretty.
Yeah.
Ronda leaned on the steroid excuse her whole career for why she avoided Cyborg, but I think that was just probably a smart business decision by Ronda to avoid Cyborg.
As well as the UFC, I mean, there was no reason because it's not like Cyborg had a massive draw like Ronda Rousey was developing, so there's no reason for them to fight. Now, I think it would be hard for anyone to argue that Ronda Rousey could beat Cyborg.